Alright guys, it's Chatterbox Reviews, coming at you guys with my review for the 100 Season 6 Episode 2. Alright, so I really enjoyed this episode, probably more than the premiere, just for the type of stuff they did here. An amazing cliffhanger, kind of a shocking ending to this episode as well. Finally, perhaps meeting these people on this new planet. So, a crazy episode. Actually, a lot of stuff happened. So, of course, I'll be going through a little bit of a recap here, a little bit of a shorter one for this episode. But recap nonetheless, rating, favorite characters, some more overall thoughts of this episode and what we might see next week going in. And maybe, like I said, perhaps meeting this group and maybe the leader. If you've seen the trailer for this season, the leader looks like he's going to be very prominent in the story. And so I'm wondering when, we'll get to meet him and we'll, see how that kind of leadership dynamic works with this group. So anyways, love to hear your guys' thoughts of the episode before we get started. What do you think of it? What did you think of, how they're setting up this new planet, how they're setting up this new group, and all the other stuff that happened within this episode? A really packed one, and I really love to get your thoughts on it. And if you enjoy the review, please leave a like and consider subscribing to the channel. Would really appreciate that, guys. So let's get into the recap for this episode without any further ado. So we start this one off with a flashback, and I don't love flashbacks. In this show, they work, varying success with flashbacks, I feel like in the past. But this one had none of our characters. Like, the first 5 or 6 minutes of this episode was, if you just turned it on and you were expecting the 100, like you see it on your TV guide, you turn it on, you're like, oh, this is the wrong show, right? So it doesn't even seem like the same show because we recognize none of these characters. But I felt like this flashback actually worked really well, and I liked it. So we get 236 years earlier, Aegis 3 Outpost, Team Alpha, day 21 after arrival. So this also sets up and gives a little bit of context of how long these people have been there. So they have been there now for 236 years. 236 years, pretty crazy, right? And I think we've been alluding to that, but I don't think we've had a secure kind of number so far. And just really awesome to see them kind of settling on this new planet. And of course, the whole point of this flashback is to show the effects of the red sun. So we follow Josephine, a teenage girl whose dad is an astronomer. It seems like he's the leader of this base camp, this Team Alpha, right? Who's come to explore the planet. She comes up with the name Sanctum for the planet, which is the Latin root of sanctuary, and her dad alludes to saving the human race. That's kind of what their mission is there, of course, because of Earth, being, or at least I bet that they could probably see what would be happening with Earth and the radiation and all that, back 236 years, even though I don't think it's been that long, right, for the survivors per se. And of course they are then sent up to the Ark and that whole thing, right? But I believe this team departed before they went up to the Ark, if I'm not wrong. So anyway, so they're trying to save the human race, and it's named Sanctum. Of course, that's the title for last episode, and so I guess that is what we are calling this planet or this moon as of right now. So, after she and her boyfriend return to the camp, as they notice something is wrong with the bugs in the environment, they suddenly stop making noise, and they hear this kind of sonic explosion or something like that. Really weird sound, and stuff is not normal. So they find Josephine's dad has gone insane. He's kind of lost it, right? He starts killing everybody at the camp in sight, including his wife and his daughter Josephine, who we've been following so far. And then he says, Sanctum is mine, right? So really showing the effects of the first red sun rising event, and kind of the red sun eclipse, and how this is not a new thing. I felt like that was an important part of this flashback as well, was showing that it's not just happening now, right? Like, this is a thing that has happened since we first got to the planet, and it's gonna keep happening, right? So I really like this, and of course, everyone involved reacts pretty much the exact same way as Clark and her group responded in last episode. because this is something that they've never seen before, and Earth, of course, this would never happen, right? And that I know, right? As far as we know, this doesn't happen. So and so it's definitely a different circumstance. So anyways, I just really like that flashback at the beginning, I will say. All right, so back to current times. Clark and the group figure out that one of them is going to turn next after Amari did, but they don't know who, right? So I love this, basically the way they set this up, and also the opportunities this gave for dialogue between characters, interaction between these characters, and also brought up some feelings kind of deep down. Whereas this kind of sun, I mean, it obviously exaggerated these feelings, but I feel like to some extent they actually brought these people, you know, these characters' true feelings to the surface. And I feel like we saw that a little bit with Bellamy. So I really do like what they set up here. So they decided to split up, basically. They're going to, split up. So I believe it was Miller, Jackson, Echo, Amari, and then Bellamy, Murphy, Clark. I believe that's it. But I may be missing someone. Anyway, so they split up into different buildings. They chain themselves up to the wall in order to protect each other against each other, right? Because they don't know who is going to turn next and who is going to try to kill, the other people, which we see in this episode happens again with Bellamy, right? So it's a mystery on who will be next since they are all breathing in the air. And like I said, I love this because of what it sets up in this episode. So then, as Murphy speaks about the ship, we switch to the others on the mothership. So they pretty much set this up, and then we don't return to that storyline for a few minutes in the episode. I believe it's like 8 or 10 minutes here where we don't actually come back to the planet, which I like because them leaving on that ship last episode was like, what? Like, that could be huge, right? So I like that they addressed that right off the bat here. So we go back to the mothership above, as the Allegis 3 people dock their ship, right, and make a grand entrance. They throw smoke grenades off, so everyone passes out, and they grab the weapons from the bridge area, I guess, where they dock. So all 4 of them are wearing all black or all, like dark blue and masks, so we don't know who they are. And I was surprised, though, that there was only 4 of them, right? Was I the only one surprised at that? I don't know. I just felt like that was a little bit odd why they would only send 4, especially because they know the amount of people on the mothership, right? Or at least they kind of have to run that through their head of like, all right, there must be more than a few of them, right? So anyways, I just felt like it was a little weird that they only sent 4 up there, but it is what it is. So we don't know who they are yet because of their masks and the outfits or the uniforms, if you will. But right away they check Octavia's bloody hand and point out that it's red, confirming that she is not a Nightblood. So this was an important part, and I feel like it kind of just grazed over this in the episode. But this also came back later, where I'm going to discuss that in a few moments, where it looks like these people from Sanctum, or this new planet, are all Nightbleeders. So it's really interesting here, and of course Octavia gets that bloody hand from punching that thing on the wall, I guess, the box on the wall, a little bit beforehand with Nyla. So anyways, just a really interesting kind of underlying thing here going. So Abby, Octavia then, and the others are trapped in the mess hall of the ship. Jordan is there too. And this is when we see the group almost beats Octavia to death after she kind of provokes them, and also for the things that she did in the bunker to pretty much all of them. And she's really not helping your cause here, of course, provoking them, making them, remember what happened in the bunker and all this type of stuff, and also bringing up Juan Crew again. And so I really did like this scene, though. It seemed a little bit forced. It did, because it's Octavia's just coming out of nowhere and just trying to provoke everybody. But I did understand it, because I think she truly does feel kind of defeated, maybe even guilty about what happened. For sure, I think guilty about Bellamy, and we see that at the very end of the episode when they actually meet again. But I felt like this was actually really well done in the fact that she was, willing to kind of provoke everybody. And at the end of the scene, you see her like crying on her knees because she almost wants them to kill her at this point. And so it's a very interesting thing. Of course, they let her live with herself though, and Abby makes that point. Let her live with it, and that's a greater punishment than killing her in this instance. So really, a fall from grace for Octavia, which we really came to expect. Of course, for all this stuff in the bunker, but we got to remember, at least the people, I think, are going to blame her for losing the big battle against the prisoners last season too, right? Even though it wasn't her fault, right? It Kane and kind of Clark and kind of sold them out, I guess. But right, people are going to blame her. So she is a lot of blame right now, and she is going to be that kind of embodiment of kind of a scapegoat, if you will. But of course, she is definitely guilty at some other things for the bunker stuff that she did with the whole Blood Raina thing, right? Anyways, so they're trapped in the mess hall. That situation happens, but then the hijackers take control of the bridge. But luckily, Raven is not captured yet. They can't get to her in time, and so she goes and wakes up Diyoza from Cryo to help them with her knowledge of the ship and these people. Also, right, with her past history of doing it before, and I totally forgot about this, but it was the Aegis 2 prisoners, right, from last season, led by Diyoza, who took over that ship and killed the entire crew except for Shaw, right? I forgot about that, but it does make a lot of sense, and she would be the perfect one to wake up, even though she's pregnant, obviously not moving the way that maybe she'd like to or that she used to be able to when we first met her in Season 5. Still really kind of knowledgeable about what this situation is and how to beat these hijackers, right? So thanks to her plan, they take out two of them very quickly in the cryo chambers. Then back in the control room, Diyoza radios the hijackers and leverages them for their hostages, who she says are alive but who are really dead. They've already killed both of them. But Diyoza tells Raven that she must put on one of the suits and act like one of them in order for the plan to work and for these hijackers to think one of the hostages is still alive so that they can get that trade, they can get their people out, and hopefully we can see what'll happen at least, right? So Diyoza with the moves. I love this, and seeing her just so quickly being able to adapt to the situation. She did wake up out of cryo a little bit too quickly. I didn't love that, where she just, like, all of a sudden popped up and asked questions. That was a little bit unrealistic, but other than that, I really love Diyoza in this episode. So quickly, they all start to lose it. We're back on the planet as the red sun kicks in. So Bellamy and Clark leave their cuffs to help the others, and while they're gone, Murphy steals the guns and decides to camp out. So we see this kind of whole sequence of Miller and Jackson both losing it. Then we see Amari already kind of lost it, right? But then we see Echo lose it as well while in that room with her. I love the effects and the camera work in this episode with showing that kind of this dizzy feeling. And you really feel for them, right? It's very blurry, very dizzy, right? And they just can't quite see properly, or they can't see rationally. So I really enjoyed the camera work in this one. Very similar to some shows or movies that have, kind of a drug scene or something like that where someone is, high or intoxicated. Something similar to that, and that's what this red sun does. But even worse so, right? I mean, usually that doesn't make you, kill your friends or something like that. But in this one it does. So then we see while Bellamy starts to lose it, which is kind of the big thing because he's the one with the keys for everybody's cuffs, and he's, obviously kind of the leader of the group. And so when he loses it, it doesn't look good, right? So Murphy that opens fire on the ground around him, causing him to run off, so Clark is able to kind of get free because we don't know what Bellamy was about to do to Clark there. So Clark, meanwhile, starts losing it too when she begins to hear Abby on the radio. Of course, it's not really her, and I really didn't fall for that at all at any time because right before that, they said the radios weren't working, right? And so you for sure knew right away it was fake. That was not Abby on the radio. So Abby, even in this scene, or her hallucination of Abby, is telling her to cut her own throat, right? And basically, and again, this is what I alluded to earlier about, basically bringing out these true feelings to the surface. And I believe this is, obviously Murphy alluded to this in the scene before, basically calling, making Clark guilty for all of the things that have happened. And it's like in this scene, that's actually coming to fruition, and Clark actually is feeling the guilt for all of these things, and hearing this voice saying, well, if you cut your own throat, if you kill yourself, everything would be better, right? And so kind of a really grim outlook here, right? And maybe this is Clark's maybe true feelings, very deep down. Maybe she actually does feel like she's responsible, and we've seen this pretty much every season, this arc with Clark. But anyways, it's definitely an interesting scene. So, but before she cuts her own throat, of course, we knew that was going to happen in episode 2 of season 6, maybe in the series finale or something. Anyways, so Murphy comes in and basically saves her, distracts her from doing it, and says they must work together to stop Bellamy, since he has completely lost it at this point. And I love it. Of course, John is the only one who doesn't go insane, or who doesn't lose it. It's just hilarious, right? And it just seems like John is the one, every time something like this happens, the City of Light as well, he is always the one to not, cave into it. And it's just really funny, the way it all works out, because of course, him just regularly, is kind of annoying and kind of, unpredictable, aggressive at times, right? And so you definitely see this kind of stark difference with him. That's just kind of how he is regularly, right? He doesn't need this red sun to affect him that way. But anyways, so then we get back to the ship. Diosa and Raven go to complete the deal with the hijackers, but when they get there, the hijackers are way too suspicious. Ask Raven to take off her mask, which is very troublesome, right? Because they figure out right away that they that the hostage isn't alive, right? And that's obviously not who they thought it was. That's not their friend, right? So they figure out who she is very quickly. They take off her mask and are about to drain the oxygen from the mess hall because, of course, they didn't deliver. They didn't deliver on the deal. But then Maddie drops down from the ceiling tiles and saves the day. So she appears out of nowhere. She shoots one of them in the back, killing her. And then the last hijacker surrenders. So they take out these hijackers pretty easily in this episode. But if it wasn't for Maddie, who knows what would have happened, right? So damn, she came out of nowhere, right? But that was an awesome entrance to this season for Maddie. My question is, though, who woke her up, right? How does this make sense? And I do think, thinking back to it, that Raven woke her up, and I think she was crawling in those vents because you heard Diosa and Raven talking earlier about how only a child could fit in those vents. And so I think that maybe Maddie overheard them, or before they went to the hijackers, they woke Maddie up, something like that. But I would have liked to see that scene so it didn't just appear like it came out of nowhere there. But anyways, it was still, pretty an awesome entrance. So the hijacker she kills, though, bleeds black. So that, I think, is kind of a confirmation that they are all Nightbloods at this point. Especially that radiation barrier back on the planet. It all just kind of connects back to them being Nightbloods and, basically being like Clark, right? Being like Clark in that they're Nightbloods. So, and then also right at the beginning, they're surprised that Octavia bleeds red. So I really do like that. They put that in there at the beginning, and then they put that in here too. And Maddie also makes this clear, and she says, "Oh, she's a Nightbleeder, right?" And so she points that out as well. So to me, they are all Nightbloods, I think, and that's the way that they're able to survive on this planet. And also why they put those radiation barriers in, because they know if other humans are going to come, they are not going to be able to withstand the radiation. Alright, so to end off the episode, the remaining crew dock the ship on the planet once again. So we got Octavia, Jordan, Abby, a few others get off. I believe Nyla's there too. And they go to help Clark and the others who they have not heard from, right? And they just took out these hijackers, so they know something is up here, and they want to go down and see what's happening. Now, I will say, though, since they have not heard from Clark and them, this is pretty risky to go down to the planet, right? I mean, and none of them really ask that in this scene. So that's one thing I was a little bit kind of irked by, is that none of them even raised the point of, well, maybe it's not habitable. Like, maybe this planet is just not habitable. Maybe all of them are dead, right? Like, so if we go down and we just open the gate, we could die too. But that, that never really crossed anyone's mind. I don't know. I just felt like that was a little bit odd. Anyway, so they've not heard from them. They're going to go look for them. Okay, so this time they have a hostage, though, who knows the environment. So they already have a leg up on Clark and her team because they had no idea what they were doing. It's a whole new planet without someone to guide them. So Octavia leads the group to the radiation barrier where they stumble upon Shaw's grave. Raven, of course, broken. A very sad moment here. Didn't last too long, but just a really kind of sad moment. I was wondering how long it would take for Raven to discover Shaw being dead, and we see it happen there. So, emotional, right? But, of course, we saw it coming, but still very emotional to see Shaw, his grave there and see Raven's reaction. But soon after they get past the radiation barrier, the hostage lets them in pretty much. And so then they find Clark, Murphy, and Bellamy collapsed on the ground after their fight in the little town square there, if you will. Of course, Clark pulled the tear gas canister, and basically they all passed out together, which was a funny ending to that big fight between Murphy, Bellamy, and Clark, where Clark and Murphy are kind of just trying to take down Bellamy, right? Just trying to basically subdue him, right? and try to, get control of this situation again, because Bellamy has just gone crazy, right? So Clark and Bellamy then wake up and seem normal again, but Murphy doesn't, and has black veins on his chest. So I think this is maybe even a bigger twist or cliffhanger than the actual cliffhanger to this episode, which is what happened to Murphy, right? So Abby says he has a weak pulse, that he's not, going to wake up, and then sees the black veins. So I'm guessing it was something in the water there where Bellamy kind of soaked him in the water. I think that had something to do with it here. So we'll have to see what happened to John, if that means something for the rest of them. Is he now a night bleeder, right? Like, I don't know what happened there. But anyways, definitely an interesting thing there. So then suddenly kids are talking and shouting, and they can hear them in the background. They're returning to their homes after the red sun has ended. So we have finally reached the end of the red sun rising kind of event, or the 2-day long eclipse, right? And the kids come up to them at the very end. Of course, the hostage knows them and talks to the little girl. But the little girl then comes up and asks Clark, "Are you here to take us home?" And of course, Clark is confused, says, "Isn't this your home?" Right? Really awesome line here. Damn, right? So they finally meet these people, and these people already want to leave. So a really interesting twist at the end of this episode. And Clark's right. Why do they want to leave? Isn't this their home? Right? Isn't this their home? So it's very, very interesting. So far, though, I will say they seem like very colorful, happy people. But then this line comes in at the end. They seem very joyous, singing and returning to home, right, with these kids. And there are some adults there, too, I think. Or at least some older teenagers, and they just seem very colorful, happy. And then, are you here to take us home, right? And she seems like kind of desperate too. So really, really interesting stuff here, and we'll have to see what that means going into next episode next week. All right, so in terms of a rating for this episode, I'm going to give it a 4.8 out of 5. Like I said off the top, I really enjoyed this episode, probably more than the premiere. Even the flashback at the very beginning I thought was really effective, and I really enjoyed it. So great pacing throughout. Obviously, they're working with 2 different storylines here that really kind of come into one. They really join up here at the very end of the episode, where we get the crew from the ship basically meeting up with Clark's team, and now they're all together again, which is great. I feel like that always kind of adds to better pacing anyways, right, with everyone kind of together, whether it's on this planet or on the ship. It just seems to work out a little bit better, instead of kind of switching back and forth constantly between these 2 storylines, or possibly even 3 or 4, right, that they've done before. So anyways, great pacing in this one, and I feel like it was kind of evenly distributed here, the time between the ship stuff with the hijackers and also Clark's team and the Red Sun. Great introduction to the characters we didn't see last episode, and to me this was Maddie. I would throw Octavia in there, and Dioza. These 3 characters were really great in this episode. Dioza was awesome. Her introduction was great. Maddie's introduction was great, even though she only had about a minute of screen time in this one, or maybe 2. And Octavio's was great too, and I love that they're not just brushing stuff under the rug here. they're bringing it right to the surface and tackling these issues that are still left unresolved in season 5. So I really love what they're doing with Octavia's character. Again, I'm going to voice my concern every week because I'm still worried on Maria Avgeropoulos' role in this season, but this episode hopefully confirms that she's going to be in it and she's going to have a main role in the season because of her controversy, of course, away from the show. But again, I'm not sure how much that actually plays into this and when they shot this. So anyways, maybe I won't keep talking about it. Hopefully it is resolved and we will see her in the rest of the season, but I'm just saying. Anyways, really great stuff for these characters that we didn't get to see last episode, and that was a little bit disappointing for me too. Storylines made sense this week, didn't seem too forced, except for that one Octavia scene where she kind of provokes them, but the rest of that played out well. Everything kind of seemed to make sense. These characters made decisions that actually made sense, whereas last episode I felt like the writing was just a little bit off, which is kind of ironic because the creator, Jason Rothenberg, who has written some of the best episodes of the series, wrote that one, and one of the staff writers, I believe, wrote this episode, if not Rothenberg again. So it's just kind of ironic there, but anyways, I just felt like this one was a little bit better in that way. Great cliffhanger, of course, ending with Murphy and the kids, not just the kids at the end there, but Murphy too. What is going to happen to Murphy in this going forward, and what did happen to him there? Like what's up with him, right? And you know, what's up with these black veins, right? Is he a night bleeder now? So really great questions here, and really looking forward to next episode. Favorite character for this one, I gotta go with John Murphy, played by Richard Harmon. Wow, I talked about Murphy last week, but Murphy has been, to me, he's the most dynamic character throughout the entire series so far. You look back to him in season 1, even, you know, ask me in season 2, do you think Murphy would be alive if there was a season 6 of the 100? I would say 100% no, right? But he's still alive, and he's still such a great character, and I think that speaks back to the writing, but also Richard Harmon as an actor. He is one of the best actors on this show, I believe. He is so great in this role, and he really brought it in this episode, as always. And of course, like I just said, we'll have to see what happens with Murphy, and he was kind of the unsung hero in this episode, where that's kind of a familiar role for him at this point, you know, despite his kind of trash talking and his, you know, you don't love him all the time, but in certain points, he really comes up big, and he really was kind of the unsung hero of that City of Light situation as well. So I'll have to see how, you know, they take Murphy and kind of where they go with this character in this season. But anyways, guys, that'll just about do it for me. Thank you so much for watching this review of the 100. Really looking forward to the rest of the season here. I love what they're doing, setting up this new world, and I can't wait. I can't wait for what they have in store for us this season. But anyways, guys, again, thanks so much for watching. Thank you so much for the support on the previous review and also this channel in general. Really would appreciate you guys subscribing, leaving a like. You know, can't thank you guys enough for all your support lately. So anyways, again, guys, thanks so much for watching. I'll see you next week for the 100 Season 6, Episode 3.